All right. Joining me for his Let's Talk About Things debut is yet another amazing member of the Elections Daily team, Harrison Lavelle. Harrison, thank you for coming on the show.
Yeah, happy to be here, Jonathan.
So, yeah, hopefully the internet connection will stay steady while we do this. But you just want to just give like an update about what happened last night in New Jersey, because last I heard, I think we got a call from the Associated Press that Phil Murphy has won, but by a much closer than expected margin.
Yeah, so our team, combined Elections Daily and Decision Desk, projected Phil Murphy winner earlier today, just a couple of minutes ago, actually. He
Oh,
currently
wow.
has 50.1% of the vote, with 91% reporting. Still a lot of VBM ballots, most of which lean toward the Democrats, hence why they helped pad Murphy's lead. Well, first to put him over Chitterelli and into the lead, and now to pad the lead. But he's only up by about a point, and the stream was very long yesterday because, in addition to some fascinating legislative contests, the gubernatorial race was close all last night, still close today, and Murphy's going to eke out a win, probably by about 1 percentage point, which would make it the closest gubernatorial race we've had in the state since 1981, when Tom Kaine Sr. beat then Congressman Jim Florio by only about 1,000 votes. So that was a tenth of 1%. So this is not close. And Murphy's margin should continue to go up as this last batch of the 9% of votes reports. But certainly a concerning sign for Democrats, to put it politely, given how close Chitterelli came to winning. But nevertheless, Murphy will probably pass this off as a victory because he is the first Democratic governor to be reelected since Brendan Byrne in 1977.
Yeah, I've noticed that that's been a bit of a, I guess, uncharitably a bit of a cope. I think that some Democrats in New Jersey and elsewhere are using as a way to sort of sort of explain away what happened last night elsewhere in the country. It was a rhetoric I was hearing, like people are focused on Virginia, but no one's talking about how Phil Murphy will be the first Democrat to be reelected governor in a long time. Is it anyway? Just I personally feel like it's bit of a cope, but maybe it's I mean it the margin certainly is not something that Democrats should be proud of in a state that Biden won by 16 points. Oh,
Yeah, no, certainly not. I mean, if you look at Virginia and New Jersey, you still saw the same baseline trends in that both states saw very large swings toward the Republican candidates across the board. And that's something you can't deny in New Jersey. I would not pass this off as a success. That might be some personal bias slipping in there. I'm sure New Jersey Democrats are going to pass it off as a success. And yes, it was certainly a big deal. I mean, it's true. A Democrat has not won re-election here in 44 years. And Phil Murphy came very, very close, only about a point away from joining that and being overcome by the curse. So really what I'm looking at when I think about New Jersey and this reelection curse, yes, Governor Murphy broke it. But if you're looking at a effectively where the Real Clear Politics average was a Murphy +8 lead, and you did see a lot of tightening, a little bit like you saw in Virginia at the end of the campaign. Obviously had a dearth of quality polling when you compare the state against Virginia, but the numbers were still there to some extent. But effectively, we predicted an 8 point win, so we had it at likely Democratic. I always personally thought it would be a contested race, a little bit competitive, but never competitive in the sense of a race decided by 5% or less. So in the write-up on the election results page, I made sure to note anything under 5%, or sorry, any Democratic win of less than 10% would be a good night for Republicans, both down the ballot and at the top of the ticket, given the expectations. Not only did he cut it below 10%, he cut it below 5%, and for a long time, until earlier today, cut it below 1%. And Murphy will continue to grow his lead, but it's not going to exceed 5%. It'll probably be pretty close at the end of the day to that 1.5% figure. So a very bad night, I would say, ultimately for the Democratic Party in New Jersey. despite what the party would probably be considering very good news, and that one of their own was finally reelected, skirted by.
Right, and I think what makes this so concerning, at least for Democrats, is not just the margin. And I definitely want to get to the state legislature race in a bit, but I guess from what I was hearing, there were real concerns about candidate quality on the Republican side, specific with. I'm actually not good with pronouncing names, but I think there were concerns about that he may not have been the best candidate Republicans could have nominated, to put it a bit mildly, and yet the fact that he came so close, is that alone must be, I think, a worrying sign. In addition to the partisan lean of New Jersey. I I I know I'm beating like a dead horse here, so. But I mean, did you hear the same things that I did, or am I just is that just something that I'm making up in my head? The concerns about candidate quality.
I would disagree with you on that. I on the state considered Chitterelli a very good candidate on the Republican side, and in terms of just the general electorate. Governor Christie endorsed him early on around him. You could argue, and I would agree, somebody like John Bramnick, the Assembly Minority Leader, and now being elevated to the Senate in Tom Kaine's Senate seat, he would have probably been a slightly better candidate. Diane Allen, the lieutenant gubernatorial nominee, also would have been a very good state. But no, Chitterelli, not a bad candidate at all. I mean, just like Youngkin, good candidate, good messaging, ran a good campaign. Republicans were very enthusiastic. Just at the end of the day, New Jersey, with that slight hint more blue, if you will, than Virginia, was too much for the GOP to overcome, even with very similar dynamics. If you look at overall voter turnout trends swing in the state between this election and the last election, and just general candidate quality. So I would say Chitterelli has been considered a good candidate.
Okay, so I don't know why I thought otherwise, but let's talk about I think what was the big story of the night in New Jersey, which was the big gains that the Republicans made in the state house. 8 seats flipped, I believe, almost all of them in South Jersey, where I think Republicans have been on the rise for a little bit now. And I think the state senate, I believe, was home to the only seat in New Jersey and Virginia that flipped to the Democrats that entire night. So can you explain like sort of what's been going on in South Jersey, and how that affected what happened last night in the state house?
Sure. So that's true. Dave Wasserman pointed out earlier, the only legislative gain for Democrats between the two states was in the 16th legislative district, but it was in the Senate race. So we'll talk about the Senate races later because there are some fascinating ones. But the 16th district is actually in North Jersey, so Hunterdon and Somerset. But you are right, South Jersey did see some very good results for Republicans. I'll just run the viewers through some of those results, some of the important ones to review. The first district, it's a Cape May, Cumberland County-based district primarily in South Jersey. Voted for Trump by about 6 points. It's one of those seats where Democrats have seen a pretty swift collapse in the last few years. Democratic Assemblymen R. Bruce Land and Matthew Milam both lost re-election to their seats in 2019. And the Republican incumbents, Eric Simonson and Antoine McClellan, the only Black Republican in the state legislature, they both won re-election to their seats rather easily if you look at their margin. And as we'll get to later, Senator Mike Testa also won the district. So Democrats did not seriously contest the first, so it was a hold. The bigger story, and we'll save some discussion for the Senate result of the third district, because I'm actually writing a new article for Elections Daily that'll come out this week solely on that Senate race because of how much of an upset it is. But the Cumberland County-based, it's actually mostly Gloucester County-based, but it also includes portions of Cumberland. The third district voted for Trump by about 2 points, but their incumbent Democratic Assembly people, John Berzichelli and Adam Taliaferro, they both lost to the Republican slate. So Beth Sawyer and Bethann Patrick, that new Republican slate is elected there. So that there are 2 new seats in the third district. The second district is entirely based in Atlantic County. And this was a particularly bad loss. We're still waiting on a lot of votes to come in from Atlantic County in terms of the VBMs that could bring the Democratic margins up a little bit. But according to our latest numbers on Decision Desk, Karen Fitzpatrick and John Armato got essentially smoked by Claire Swift and Don Guardian. So that would be a total of 4 seat gains if you look at those districts together. Claire Swift is the former Deputy State Attorney General, and Don Guardian is the former mayor of Atlantic City. John Armato was one of the incumbents, but Fitzpatrick was an Atlantic County commissioner filling in for Vince Mazzeo, who lost his Senate race. Again, it hasn't been projected yet because there are a lot of votes out. Because there are a lot of votes out in Atlantic County, but it's not looking that great against Palestina right now. As you run north, in the 8th district, Republicans have held both of those seats, but their third seat of gains, if you will, came in the 11th district, where it looks like Republicans Marilyn Paperno and Kimberly Oilner will actually defeat Assemblyman Joanne Downey and Eric Hoteling in the Monmouth County-based 11th. So that's a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in terms of confirmed gains. And the 16th district for the assembly is too close to call right now, so you could see some changes there. But already effectively, you have 3 districts where Republicans are very, very likely at this point to maintain those gains in the assembly. So very good result for them.
Yeah. And were these seats a mix of upstate and downstate, or which is to say, was this a mix of seats where areas where Republicans are gaining and some areas where they've been on the decline, but they're sort of reversion a bit this year, or is it all in areas where they're expected in the long term to gain?
Not necessarily. The 11th district voted for Joe Biden by about 12 points. It's generally been getting bluer, but it flipped back. And the Republicans haven't had assembly people in the 11th since Mary Pat Angelini and Caroline Casagrande represented the seat. So that's actually a relatively new result. And judging by the VBMs today, Senator Vingo Powell, who we originally thought lost in an upset, appears to have actually won his race against Laurie Annetta, but by the thinnest of margins. Definitely a surprise in how close it was there. Republicans held their assembly seats in the 21st district rather stably. It's a very Democratic district, but it's one where Republicans have continued to be strong down the ballot. It's up north, primarily based in Union County, but also has a good chunk in Somerset. It looked early on like in the Bergen-based 38th district that Republican assembly candidates could take the lead, but those Bergen VBMs have really broke heavily in favor of the Democrats. And as they've broken, it's effectively crushed any Republican hopes of winning the 38th district or the 36th district seats in either the Senate or the Assembly. As for the 16th, the drops that we've seen come out of Mercer County have really swayed the results there. And they've actually put not only incumbent Roy Fryman in first, but also have put Andrew Zwicker ahead in his Senate race, which is, again, that 16th, the only Democratic gain in a Biden's 22 open seat that was brought to fruition between the 2 states. And then the second assembly spot, Sadaf Jaffer, she is actually in second place now, but by the thinnest of margins. So the Republicans were originally ahead there. So far, it's pretty much looking like it's in South Jersey in the 3rd and the 2nd. The 2nd and 11th are both Biden districts. The 3rd is a Trump district. But that's about 6 new seats being brought into the Republican fold in the Assembly so far.
Right. And I don't want to spoil too much that you're going to be writing in your article. I guess one more thing I'd like to talk about, I guess I'll tease a bit, is apparently the state Senate leader, the longtime state Senate leader, a more conservative Democrat, appears to have gone down to defeat against a Republican who spent less than $200 on the campaign, which, if that happens, would be one of the biggest upsets in New Jersey in a while.
It has happened.
Oh, it has
Effectively, there's
happened.
no way for Sweeney to come back, and it's the biggest upset probably in New Jersey political history, at least in the era that I have been around for. But again, I'm not going to go into too much detail here because the whole article is going to analyze it. But effectively, I have a Phillies fan truck driver who put nothing into his campaign. Uh, raised $10,000, only spent $156, 67 of which was for Dunkin' Donuts. And he upset Steve Sweeney, president of the Senate, which eliminates one of Murphy's big legislative competitors. So Murphy should be able to be more progressive in his second term now. But the Gloucester portion of this district accounts for 60% of the total vote. In his race 4 years ago against Fran Grenier, uh, he won that portion of the seat by 22 points. This time he only won it by a single point. And that 23% swing crushed him effectively because you saw Cumberland and Salem, smaller portions that were more Republican, especially in Salem, swing against him. And it's just ironic that the NGEA here teamed up with Republicans 4 years ago to spend $5 million on Fran Grenier's campaign in a race that was the most expensive legislative. He still is at $21 million, but they couldn't beat him. He won by 17 points. It wasn't his biggest margin. He won by a little more in I think 2011, one of those cycles, but a really large margin. And this time, Durr won. And honestly, I'll talk about it in the article, but I think people in the district and around the country, as I said, national environment's becoming a big deal. A lot of people that are angry at Democrats did not split their tickets. They just voted for Edward Durr as a Republican without knowing who he was or considering the fact that Sweeney's represented the district for a very long time. And if that's what you start to see long term, then you're going to have elections that pretty much align at all levels. Analysts probably would find that boring, but I think that's where we're going towards heading forward, at least environment.
Well, I mean, I hope that people check out your article. Where can people follow you on Twitter, and where can they make sure that they get that article in their inbox?
Yeah, so you can follow me on Twitter at HWL Lavelle Maps and Elections Daily Twitter page and follow it at elections_daily, or you can we actually have a newsletter that's going to be coming out, but there will be more on that later. But to get my article, you can follow me on Twitter, follow Elections Daily on Twitter, or you could just go to our website. It's probably going to be published closer to this weekend. And then you'll be able to read about it there when it's published. I wrote an article tonight about our Senate ratings changes. You can find that as well. We moved 11 races, 4 for the Senate and 7 governorships, all towards the Republicans to better reflect this new environment. So you can read about those changes there and stay up to date on that.
Well, just very quickly before I let you go, I just am curious about what implications, like we've talked about, this is a bad national environment, clearly from the results in New Jersey, but what implications do you think this is going to have for next year? Or are we just going to just tease a little bit and we'll see what's actually, and when the article comes out, people can read that? Because what do you think that this sounds to me like an environment where Republicans take both houses of Congress, not just the House, but the Senate as well?
Yeah, so this environment is, if it's R+10 like this, then Democrats have no chance of winning anything significant in the midterms. It's just going to be losses and difficult losses. I wrote about this in my article. Dave Wasserman, a brilliant analyst over at the Cook Political Report, posted some comparisons looking at the legislative gains or the environments for these legislative races in Virginia and New Jersey. And if you took the environment in New Jersey and applied it to House races 2 years ago, I believe the math he had corresponded to a net gain of 44 seats for the Republicans, and in Virginia, 51 seats for the Republicans. Both of those are on track to, well, let me just say this. Highly doubt we're going to ever have a 2010 level wave where 63 House seats as a net gain. Because quite frankly, there really isn't enough turf to pull away from Democrats like there was prior to the 2010 election cycle. But a 50-seat gain, that's very significant. That's even larger than the Democratic gain in 2006, the Democratic gain in 2018. Republican gains in 1994 and in 2014. We're not going to repeat 2010. Again, it's hard to understand if you haven't researched the 2010 cycle, just how much effectively the Republicans couldn't fall any lower in the House before that cycle, not much lower. So they had everything to pick off. But again, a 51 seat House gain very much could be a possibility. And with that environment as well, if you're struggling to win as a Democrat in New Jersey or Virginia in an R+10 environment, you're not going to have an easy time holding Nevada or Arizona or Georgia. You probably have a close race in Colorado. That's why we shifted these ratings, because quite frankly, a lot of these incumbent senators are going to have the re-election fights of their lives if they're going to be running under the exact same circumstances we have now. And nothing's constant in politics. This is a perfect example of the fact that, you know, there's not really that much continuity. States move back and forth, and nothing's permanent. So something could change between now and November, but precedent would say that if the environment's bad in November, the year before the midterm, it's probably going to come to define the entire campaign cycle for the midterm.
Well, I hope everyone, checks out that article for more. You guys do amazing work at Elections Daily, and I think I speak for, all of my viewers. But I'm thinking all of your viewers when I say thank you guys so much for the work that you guys do. Harrison, thank you so much for coming on. I'm looking forward to reading that, and hopefully we'll have you back on sometime.
Thank you for having me.